We are about to dive into probably the most controversial story tonight, probably of the week. If you have not heard, they have finally unsealed the Jeffrey Epstein documents. Now, there are a number of names throughout those documents. I actually have a link to a Guardian article that I'm going to share with you in the chat, so you have access to those documents as well, because the Guardian actually took the time to take the documents and just embed them in their article, which is actually pretty base. I'm not going to hate on it, but it's like over hundreds of pages. I have skimmed through probably about 50 and picked up the information that I need for this show tonight. This is part one. There is going to be a part two that is dropped as well. I think that's coming out tonight. I can't read all these hundreds of pages, but I skipped through what I felt that you needed to know that is important. But first, we're going to start with this clip here when it was announced that those documents have been unsealed. And then there are a couple of people that are mentioned in those documents that I saw for myself that we are going to highlight tonight. And we're going to go person by person so that this doesn't end up a jumbled mess, because it could easily be that way. Let's get started here. The Jeffrey Epstein documents have been unsealed.
What we've been waiting for, really, for the past now 2 days, the court finally unsealing several high-profile names of those in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit, and that was due to this lawsuit that was filed over the Ghislaine Maxwell case. I want to put some video up of Epstein there. We now know that nearly 200 names that had previously been redacted from court documents in a lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein's former lover and accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, have been made public on orders of this federal judge there in New York. And this is what we know. Some of those names, big names on the list, they include former President Bill Clinton, Epstein's estranged longtime aide, Doug Band, Prince Andrew, member of the royal family, of course, brother to King Charles, and the French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel, who, like Epstein, died while awaiting trial. So in the meantime, we want to bring into the conversation now more experts to kind of help us analyze all of this. Well, what does this mean for the Jeffrey Epstein story and saga? Moving forward, of course, Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in a jail cell in 2019 at the Manhattan Correctional Center. Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year prison sentence. And some of Epstein's victims have gotten settlements from banks like JP Morgan Chase and also Deutsche Bank over their ties to Epstein's. And they were, of course, the banks that he did his finances from. Let's bring into the conversation right now senior legal analyst with The Messenger, Adam Klasfeld. He knows so much about this story. He joins me. Adam, thanks for being with us here. So the delays are over. We have some names. I have this now almost 100-page kind of exhibit here. This is just one exhibit with some of these names here. Have you pored over any of this here? Did anything surprise you, if you have?
Just want to pause here for just a second. That's one exhibit. I believe what I saw was over 900 pages. So just FYI.
So just to give your viewers a little bit of background, these files were just released shortly before our interview. I think they broke at around the 7 o'clock hour. Some of my colleagues at The Messenger have been poring over them. One of the revelations that came about, there was a deposition by one of Epstein's victims, Johannes Jorsberg. And one of his alleged victims, Ms. Schmorsberg, had said in a deposition that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly told her that former President Clinton liked them young. That was one of the quotes that some of my colleagues found.
Okay, so some of the people that I saw, of course, Bill Clinton, we all knew that. I covered that a couple of nights ago. We'll get into that a little bit further. Bill Clinton, David Copperfield, the magician. I guess out of all the things that Dave could make disappear, he couldn't make this one disappear. He was mentioned in that list, in those documents. Donald Trump name was mentioned, but in a different way. It's not what you think. I'll get into that in just a second. Hillary Clinton's hairstylist, Frederique, was also mentioned. Michael Jackson was mentioned. It's just, oh my God. Like, it makes me disgusted, like, thinking about it. But there are a number of names, some of them that we'll get to. I don't remember everybody, but it was a number of names. Naomi Campbell was actually mentioned as well. Naomi Campbell, the supermodel. Yeah. Let's continue.
At the Messenger, in the same deposition file, there was a reference to former President Trump. It said that she was not asked to give him a massage. There have been other references in different documents to Prince Andrew, who your viewers may remember. That Virginia Giuffre, who's the woman who filed the lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell that set all of this into motion, had also filed a lawsuit against Prince Andrew. Now, her allegations go into a little bit more detail in the unsealed filings. She says in one of the filings, she alleges that she was forced into an orgy with the prince. So we are, as you noted, this is a large stack of files. Journalists are certainly going to be poring over it to see how many of these allegations are new, how many of these allegations are rehashed. These documents have been around under seal in a court record for quite a long time. And it also must be emphasized that they include people who aren't necessarily accused of wrongdoing. A lot of the allegations, and these are not, it's been sometimes described as a client list. It is not. It's a list of people who are tied in some way, whether they met one of Epstein's victims, whether they are an alleged victim themselves. It's a long list of people whose identities have been under seal for various reasons, and some of whom we've heard about from media reporting. Some of them we may be hearing about the first time, and it's going to take some time to process and digest these documents.
Yeah, just for our viewers who are joining us right now, we have an 89-page exhibit that was just released. This is the first batch in the Epstein documents that were just released before Adam came on to talk with us here. You know, Adam, that's kind of seemed to be the theme going into the first release here, that we weren't going to really learn anything new, that we might get more, you know, of the color and tawdry details of some of the interactions of some of these high-profile individuals in Epstein's orbit, like, you know, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, what have you here. But a lot of people possibly were expecting some new names, and we had brought on some guests who were somewhat describing it as a client list. And to your point, this is a list of people who worked for Epstein, who had business with Epstein, who maybe was at a party once with Epstein, as innocuous as that. So it really kind of runs the gamut here, does it not? I mean, as far as ramifications go, you know, once we get all of these documents unsealed, we pour over them, do you anticipate more legal recriminations happening in the Epstein saga? More lawsuits filed by victims, more people speaking out?
It's hard to say, but it's useful to have a historical perspective on that point. Now, the reason that these documents are coming out is part of the same litigation that set all of this in motion. It was the lawsuit filed by Virginia Giuffre, now Virginia Roberts, against Ghislaine Maxwell. And it probably could be argued that Ghislaine Maxwell would not have been prosecuted if not for this lawsuit. And more importantly, the open records battle that followed this lawsuit, because all of these documents have been kept under seal under the terms of a settlement. It took an unsealing fight brought forward by the Miami Herald and its reporter, Julie K. Brown, who brought this to court as an open records battle and won up to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, starting a string of releases. And the first batch of releases brought enough pressure that started the first prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein, and after his suicide, the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell and her ultimate conviction. Right. There have been other litigation since then. There has been litigation looking at the financing. of Jeffrey Epstein, against banks involved in that, where he has been a client, and the bankers that he has engaged with. And through that litigation, we learn new people who may be connected to him, and we learn new information, new allegations, and there's, I won't make predictions, but in the release of information, it enhances our understanding, and historically, I'll say, it has led in the past to more litigation, more public understanding, and more information coming forward.
Okay. And one of the things that I want to start off with, this comment here, because you were reading my mind here, Sean. We're going to start off with is actually Les Wesner. I believe his name is Les. So he actually is the gentleman that created Victoria's Secret. So apparently, I guess now we know what Victoria's Secret really was. But he's the guy that created Victoria's Secret. He was actually very close with Epstein. He's actually the one that took a chance on Epstein, gave him money. Epstein was basically a con artist, gave him money to help him get going and starting business and everything. And, he's not in the know, I would say. I've seen several documentaries about this. So he knew about allegations prior to Jeffrey Epstein's conviction, and he kind of just seemed to wash his hands of it. So just FYI. Prince Andrew, who was mentioned, I've talked about the issue with Prince Andrew before on this show. Police did show up to serve papers to Prince Andrew. I believe this was last year. For whatever reason, they said they could not reach him. I'm like, I think it's pretty, blatant. Where he is going to be. The royal family, they always announce when they're going to make appearances. So how to reach him if you needed to reach him. So Prince Andrew is another one that has basically gotten by for quite some time because of who he is and because he's a part of the royal family. Prince Andrew needs to be held accountable along as everyone else. And there are actual accusations against detailed, which I can't go into on the show, but there are actual detailed accusations against Prince Andrew. So it's another one of those things that makes you wonder, in reference to the royal family, did they know about that? Now, let's go to Donald Trump. We're going to start with him first because people are asking, what did it say about him? It says Donald Trump is mentioned multiple times in the newly unsealed Jeffrey Epstein documents. But I want to show you what is mentioned, because when I saw his name, this piece right here is a conversation says, did you see her in the plane or on the trip to New York engaged in any kind of affectionate or contact with Jeffrey? No. With Ghislaine? No. How did it come to be that you were in a casino in Atlantic City? So again, this is Virginia answering these questions. It goes on to say, as we were flying, Jeffrey said, why don't you go sit in the cockpit to check out the landing? So we were sitting there and the pilots told me to go back and tell him that we can't land in New York and that we were going to have to land in Atlantic City. Jeffrey said, great, we'll call up Trump and we'll go to, I don't recall the name of the casino, but we'll go to the casino. So this is one of the examples where Donald Trump's name was mentioned, and it was mentioned in reference to going to Donald Trump's casino. From what I've read, Donald Trump, has not been confirmed that he's been on that island. So I didn't see anything that said he actually was there, that he visited Epstein Island. So it seems like his name was mentioned in reference to business transactions, right? Like his casino, etc. It goes on to say, and what happened with an ID issue? Miss Cawley says, objection. Then the witness says, all I knew is that she was not going to be allowed to gamble. And so I spent time with her. We were just walking around. I don't remember what we did, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that answers the question there that people may have had about Donald Trump, because it's basically been confirmed through those documents that he was not on the island. So that's the first person that we're going to look at. The second one, though, This one, I don't think people knew about. Now, this was coming from Mario. He actually spoke to one of the Epstein victims, and she said that there was a prime minister involved. Listen to this. So now we're getting into this piece here. Breaking: major Epstein victim just sent me a bombshell. Today's documents mentioned a well-known prime minister that Epstein trafficked underage girls to. The witness just gave us this hint. Between us, though, I will hint at the PM who has captured the attention of the public. And this is a picture of a camel. Camel is all I can say without saying anything. The image in the message is that of a camel. Can you connect the dots on who this well-known prime minister is? Disclaimer: I protected the name of the witness at her request for her own safety. And here's a screenshot of that DM between Mario and one of the victims. So again, the name's not mentioned, obviously, but just showing you that so you can see it. And this is, I read this part to you, and this is Mario saying, can I read your statement above, your message, and can I mention your name? She responded, yes, but keep in mind that the prime minister hint is very dangerous for me. Maybe leave that info between us for now. However, when that information was released, this article has seemed to make its way back into the limelight again. How many people remember this? This was May 4th, 2023. And it says, Ehud Barak met with Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times, flew on private plane, report. This is former prime minister. Okay, let's get into this. So that's him, for those who are not aware. And it says, former Prime Minister Ehud Barak met with the late disgraced financier and child abuser Jeffrey Epstein dozens of times beginning in 2013, according to a new report on Wednesday by the Wall Street Journal. Barak was among the list of Jewish names, including pioneering linguist and left-wing activist Noam Chomsky, longtime Bard College president Leon Botstein, and filmmaker Woody Allen, listed in a newly uncovered private calendar for Epstein. The Wall Street Journal reported in the first part of its investigative series on the hugely influential Jewish donor who used his largesse to obscure what investigators uncovered years ago as an elaborate underage trafficking ring. Former Prime Minister of Israel. So the post here from Mario, where one of the victims says there was prime minister involved, and she gave the hint of the camel. After this post, people started pointing towards this article of Barak. So they think that it may have been him. We don't know. Again, allegedly, we do not know. But one thing that I do want to make very clear, and then we'll get into the next person. One thing is for sure, and that is that obviously Jeffrey Epstein was blackmailing celebrities, politicians, seems like more so political officials. And Whitney Webb has pointed to this as he was doing this on behalf of Mossad. Now, Mossad is the National Israeli Intelligence. A lot of this is starting to make more sense once you break everything down. Now we're going to go to the next person. Bill Clinton. Let's get into this one.
And Donald Trump, included in a 2016 deposition of Johanna Schoberg, a former employee of Epstein. She says in the document that she and Epstein had a conversation And quote, he said one time that Clinton likes them young, referring to girls.
That statement right there, by the way, it's all over the internet. That's the statement that she made about, or that was made to her about Bill Clinton, that he likes them young. Let's go on.
To girls. When asked if Clinton was a friend of Epstein's, she said she understood Epstein had, quote, dealings with Clinton. Clinton has not been accused of any crimes or wrongdoing related to Epstein and has denied any kind of criminal activity. But in 2019, he admits to having flown on Epstein's private plane, but knew nothing of the financier's, quote, terrible crimes.
Don't you guys think it's funny that all these people that said they flew on his plane and they've been to his island, don't you think it's funny that all these people say, oh, I didn't know anything about those crimes? Really? Some of these people hung out with Jeffrey Epstein after he was convicted the first time. Remember, he was charged twice. Noam Chomsky, Woody Allen, both of them hung out with Jeffrey Epstein after those charges. But everybody's just like, yeah, I didn't know anything about what was happening there.
Schoberg also recalled a time she was with Epstein on one of his planes, and pilot said he needed to land in Atlantic City. Jeffrey said, great, we'll call up Trump and we'll go to, I don't recall the name of the casino, but we'll go to the casino. She says in the deposition she never gave a massage to Trump. This is the first reference to Donald Trump, but he is not accused of any wrongdoing.
Right now, the only person who has been prosecuted is a woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, who certainly, should be behind bars. But what's interesting in this, network of all these men who've been trafficking young women and underage women for decades, and yet the only person that's been prosecuted, is a woman.
This is something people really need to think about. All these men in this client list that they don't want to reveal, all these men, none of them. They basically made Ghislaine Maxwell, she basically took the fall for everybody. Crazy, right?
Many other people that, should be held accountable as well.
The documents also contain excerpts of depositions taken of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who previously reached an out-of-court settlement in her sexual abuse lawsuit against Prince Andrew. Giuffre alleged in her deposition that Maxwell directed her to have sexual contact with people including former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, Prince Andrew, and tech guru Marvin Minsky. Attorneys for Ghislaine Maxwell said in a statement on Wednesday she has consistently and vehemently maintained her innocence. This is the first set of documents to be unsealed under a December 18 court order, with more expected in the coming weeks.
Okay, let's go ahead and stop there. I want to answer this question and then we'll get into the next person. Jonna, where do they get these poor underage girls from? According to the documentaries that I have seen, they basically, by they, I mean Epstein, basically targeted girls that came from broken homes. They targeted girls that they knew needed the money, maybe were come from a single parent household. The parent may be checked out. One of the girls that was in the documentary said that her mom was on and off of drugs. Like, they targeted those types of girls. It's really sad. Now, there was an event still on the Bill Clinton issue. There was an event that happened recently where Alex Rosen, I don't know who this guy is, but Alex Rosen, this is trending around on Twitter. Hillary Clinton was actually speaking at an event for Sheila Jackson Lee. So Sheila Jackson Lee is running for mayor. Hillary Clinton was there, I guess, to offer her support. And it did not go well for Hillary because this issue with Bill Clinton and these unsealed documents was brought to her attention at this event. So I want to go ahead and share this as well. And this is from Solomon. Remember, I interviewed him. It said Epstein client list. It says Alex Rawson gets dragged out for asking Hillary Clinton about Bill Clinton's trips to Epstein Island. Hold on to your seat for this one, folks.
Then you want somebody who's going to get up every day.
Hey, Hillary, why's your husband visit Epstein Island 26 times?
Notice what's wrong with the crowd here. You see, we have become brainwashed as a people. We really have. The people there, they're more concerned about cheering on Sheila Lee for mayor. They're more concerned about that than they are about the fact of Bill Clinton going to that island over 20 something times. They're more concerned about that. Watch what they do to this guy.
Is this really necessary? Is this really necessary, guys? Is this really necessary? Is this really necessary, sir? Hey, is this necessary, officer? You guys are dragging a grown man out. Is this necessary? Seriously, come on.
Now, see, they're dragging him out, right? But Hillary Clinton, through all her corruption, she gets to stand on the stage. Let me say this again. They're dragging him out for asking why Bill Clinton was on that island over 20 something times. He's the one that gets dragged out by the police. But the woman who has a lot of corruption gets to stand on the stage. This is the world that we live in.
Hey, is this necessary, guys? Don't hit me, man. You guys are dragging somebody out in public. You're not welcome. Private event. You decide
so why do you guys support like just endless government spending? I mean, she's giving more money to white people in Ukraine than you freaking idiots in Houston keep voting for her. Watch out.
Did you hear what he said? He said she's giving more money to white people in Ukraine than to you. But like loyal peeps we have been to the Democratic Party, everybody is there to protect Hillary.
Endless money to Ukraine, endless money for Israel. She's not anti-establishment. You guys vote for the same shit over and over again. Same crime. It's gonna be like just like Chicago. You guys love this shit.
All right, you have a blessed day, sir. Have a nice day.
So he managed to get the question out very quickly, but I think it was ridiculous to drag someone out of the venue. That was ridiculous. Again, but like I said, but the corrupt person gets to stand on the stage and speak to the people. That's the world we live in. Now we're moving on to Alan Dershowitz. And this is pretty much the meat of this particular story. Alan Dershowitz has been on this podcast tour, basically going out there to speak to audience and tell people why they need to, condemn Hamas. Do you condemn Hamas? To do that. And also tell people that they need to basically stand on the side of the state of Israel. Alan Dershowitz is local for me because he's a professor at Harvard University. He lives here. Just let that sink in. But Alan has some things to answer for because he was also mentioned in those unsealed documents. And it was very detailed in reference to Alan. The number of times Alan says, it wasn't me. Very detailed, though. Very detailed. And Alan has even gone as far to try to blame Hamas for his relationship that he had with Jeffrey Epstein. I kid you not. This guy is a problem. I've called this out. I don't know why people keep interviewing this guy. I really don't. Take a look at this in reference to Alan Dershowitz. So I shared this earlier. So let's go down. Can I make you bigger? One such powerful individual that Epstein forced then minor Jane Doe, number 3, to have sexual relations with was former Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz, a close friend of Epstein's and well-known criminal defense attorney. Epstein required Jane Doe number 3 to have sexual relations with Dershowitz on numerous occasions while she was a minor, not only in Florida, but also on private planes in New York, Mexico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. In addition to being a participant in the abuse of Jane Doe number 3 and other minors, Dershowitz was an eyewitness to the abuse of many other minors by Epstein and several other Epstein's co-conspirators. Again, I have to add this here, allegedly. Dershowitz would play a significant role in negotiating the NPA on Epstein's behalf. Indeed, Dershowitz helped negotiate an agreement that provided immunity from federal prosecution in the Southern District of Florida, not only to Epstein, but also to any potential, I lost my spot there, sorry. Any potential co-conspirators of Epstein. NPA at 5. Thus, Dershowitz helped negotiate an agreement with the provision that provided protection for himself against any criminal prosecution in Florida for allegedly abusing Jane Doe number 3. Because this broad immunity would have been controversial if disclosed, Dershowitz, along with other members of Epstein's defense team and the government, tried to keep the immunity provision secret from all of Epstein's victims and the general public, even though such secrecy violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Allegedly. Now, right after I shared that last night, right after I shared it, boop, Alan Dershowitz pops up on Fox News. Right after I shared it. Couldn't wait to jump on there. So, in all fairness, you're going to hear his side. And there's something I'm going to point out in this interview because this is not cool. Listen to what he says as he tries to defend himself and pay very close attention to the words that he chooses to use.
Joining us now, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor, you are mentioned in this document. You are mentioned repeatedly and very specifically. It was the allegation against you was that Epstein forced then minor Jane Doe number 3 to have sexual relations with you, and that also you were an eyewitness to sexual abuse of other minors by Epstein. You have been out there vigorously defending your name, your honor, and denying these allegations fiercely. And I want to give you a chance now that it's come out in writing tonight to get your reaction.
Well, first of all, the woman who accused me has now stated categorically that she may have misidentified me, confused me with someone else. And these documents, if all the documents are revealed, will prove categorically that she did misidentify me, that I never met her, never heard of her, never spoke to her. And I can prove it by independent means. I have all my travel records. I have all my television appearances. I can prove that I couldn't possibly have been anywhere near any of the people who were involved in this. I was Epstein's lawyer. Of course I flew on his plane with...
Pause. Everyone hold on to that bit that he just said right there, how he couldn't have possibly been anywhere near any of the people involved. Just hold on to that, because that's going to be important when we get to the discussion that he had with Kim Iverson months ago. Okay?
Ken Starr, with Roy Black, with other lawyers. We flew to meetings with the U.S. attorney, with the state attorney. And so people have to be very careful about what they're believing and when it happened. For example, as soon as Epstein was shown to be what he was, I ended my personal association with him completely, but I maintained a legal relationship with him.
Pause. So, Alan, You know you done messed up, right? Alan Dershowitz just told you that as soon as these allegations came out against Jeffrey Epstein, that he ended his personal relationship with him. But he continued his legal relationship with him. Considering this was the second time, don't you think it would have been wise to end all communication and relationships that you had with Jeffrey Epstein at that point in time? He didn't have to remain his lawyer. He could have dropped him. Lawyers do this all the time. Why would you continue to have the professional relationship to still be his lawyer after all the information that came out? If you were smart enough to know, Alan, that dude's headed for some trouble, I need to end my personal relationship with him, then you mean to tell me he wasn't smart enough to know to end his professional relationship with him? No, he knew he should have ended both. The point is, Alan was trying to get paid. Alan wanted that money, honey. Because sometimes it could be two things true at the same time. And it could be true that Epstein had information on Alan too. Let him continue.
Represented some of the worst people in the world and continue to do so. That's my.
Let's go back. Listen, because, sometimes the mouth just rolls. Listen to what he says about who he represented.
But I maintained a legal relationship with him. I represented some of the worst people in the world and continue to do so. That's my life. And
I represented some of the worst people in the world. And he said he's continued to do so. That's his life. Why are you representing all these worst people?
Of course, I represented Epstein. Now, the one point I do want to make is that I understand all the feminist groups and the radicals who think this is the worst thing in the world, that anybody ever had any contact with Jeffrey Epstein. Where are all those radical feminists when it comes to the Hamas rapes of young Jewish girls, sexual abuse, beheadings? They are quiet. They are silent. The incredible hypocrisy of the Me Too movement. Me Too, except if you're a Jew. And I want to have a list of all the radical feminists who are pushing hard, and I understand that, to get all these names revealed. And I want to know how many of them have ever actually condemned Hamas for the rapes that we now know occurred and the murders that occurred. How many have been silent, and how many, like the National Lawyers Guild, have actually approved of what Hamas did?
So just like that, Alan Dershowitz pivots from his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, his name being mentioned in those documents, his decision to choose to actually maintain a professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He pivots from that to Hamas. He's blaming feminists. He's blaming Hamas. Now he's trying to also say he's being attacked because he's Jewish. It's everyone's fault except for Alan. Alan is not taking any responsibility. Have you noticed that? How much of a clown do you have to be to sit up there and to honestly sit up there? Now you're going to blame Hamas for your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and the poor decisions that you made in your life? This is insane. Second of all, he brought up the beheadings again. How many times does that need to be debunked? It's been debunked by mainstream media. Second of all, when it comes to the assaults, the alleged assaults by Hamas, that story's been turned all around as well. This was a way for Alan to take the heat off of him. It's just everything's Hamas' fault now. It was supposed to rain today. It's sunny. Damn it. Damn that Hamas.
Let's put this in context. I'm thrilled that all these papers have come out. I urged them. I went to court. I asked for everything to come out because I knew that I had done nothing wrong and the papers would exculpate me. What I only worry about is that maybe the judges withheld certain documents. I want to make sure every single document comes out, including the documents that cast doubt on the credibility of some of the accusers and some of the accused. The public has the right to see everything and make their own judgment. We do not put the country in guilt by accusation, but guilt by association.
But by the way, I think that is fair, and I still like.
He just said we're not a country. We should not be a country of guilt by association. But he's been doing that for the past couple of months, ever since October 7th. All the people that have been protesting in support of the Palestinian struggle, according to Alan Dershowitz and all these interviews that he's had, he's made them guilty by association. He said that they were calling for the removal, the extermination of all Jewish people. I said that was not the case. I have been at those protests myself. I haven't heard people say that. He said, well, there was one person who said this. Oh, so all those other people at the protests, according to Alan Dershowitz, are guilty by association. But he says we shouldn't be that way. But he's been doing it.
Like you, believe that in the presumption of innocence, and I don't rush to judgment. And frankly, on many high-profile cases in this country, this show, starting with Richard Jewell, we've been right. We were right about Duke Lacrosse. We were right about UVA. We were right about Ferguson, Missouri, and Freddie Gray in Baltimore, because I didn't rush to judgment, and I had impeccable sources. I have known you for years. I don't really know why you like to defend these high-profile clients. Everybody certainly deserves a defense, including Mr. Epstein, including O.J. Simpson, and you and I had wars over Bill Clinton back in the day.
Sure.
You've taken on these high-profile cases. Why? And do you regret it at all? And did you ever see anything untoward about Mr. Epstein?
So Sean Hannity tells Alan Dershowitz that he's known him for years. Okay. And Alan Dershowitz knew Jeffrey Epstein for years. Just because you knew someone for years doesn't mean they weren't doing some shady shit. Doesn't mean that they weren't being corrupt. Just because you knew them for years. So think about that, people. Listen to this. Why do you continue to represent these high-profile clients?
I never did. And I do regret having ever met Jeffrey Epstein because it caused me the worst few years of my life when I was falsely accused and I was canceled by the 92nd Street Y, canceled by Temple Emmanuel. And then she ultimately admitted that she may have confused me with someone else. And so, things obviously have gotten a lot better. Now, of course, these revelations put my name in the headlines again. But I've never been afraid of that because I have nothing to be afraid of, nothing to be ashamed of. I did nothing wrong. Would I do it again? Not if I knew I was going to be falsely accused, but if not for that, I've represented far worse people. I've represented murderers.
Pause. So you hear what he just said? He would do it again if he knew he wouldn't be falsely accused. He would still do it. He would still represent Jeffrey Epstein, knowing what we know now. He would still represent him because Alan trying to get that paper, okay? Alan trying to get paid. I've represented worse people, he says. He goes on to tell you worse people.
Would I do it again? Not if I knew I was going to be falsely accused, but if not for that, I've represented far worse people. I've represented murderers. I've represented people who have done terrible, terrible things. That's an essential part of our system. If I don't do it, who will? I had tenure. I had an.
So here we go with if I wasn't going to do the job, who was going to do it? Listen, there are several lawyers throughout this country. There are multiple different types of law that you can practice. And even if you are a criminal attorney, you can always choose to represent the other side. But let's be real. Alan went where the money was. Get me with the sob story.
Obligation to defend the most controversial, the worst people. Sometimes I won, sometimes I lost. Sometimes I created a plea bargain like I did in this case. By the way, Epstein was furious at me for the plea bargain. He wouldn't pay my fee because he thought I had done a terrible job because he ended up going to jail and having to report as a sex offender. The rest of the world thought it was a sweetheart. But that's what criminal defense lawyers do. I'm 85 years old. I hope the good Lord gives me the strength to continue to represent the most despised, the most controversial, the most unpopular people in the world. Look at the hell I got for representing Donald Trump. I did that and I lost a lot of my friends. And people say to me all the time, oh, I understand Epstein, but not Trump. Or I understand Trump, but not Epstein. You have to understand that the role of the criminal defense lawyer is to defend everybody who's falsely accused.
Well, I'll say this.
And we're going to pause that there because I'm going to show you something else about Alan Dershowitz, and we're going to get into another discussion. Because, you know, Alan, I don't know if he remembers this conversation, but I want you to think about what he just said on that interview. And then I want to go back to what he said to Kim Iverson when she interviewed him last year. Let's start with the first video, or actually, in March when she interviewed him. So let's start with the first. There are two videos.
Mr. Dershowitz, while I have you here, I covered the Jeffrey Epstein case extensively, and your name came up quite often. Virginia Giuffre actually accused you, then later backtracked, say that she had made a mistake. There were others who had also accused you, but you had said that they couldn't properly identify you or certain parts of you, and therefore...
No. It wasn't identify. It's that one woman said she saw me walking up the stairs of Epstein's house at a time years before I'd ever met Epstein. So that was just a complete made-up story. And the other woman had written a series of letters to the New York Post claiming she had videotapes of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton having sex together, and have many other people. And then, of course, she backed away from all of it. And I've been completely, totally exonerated and vindicated. I never met any of these people. I never heard of them. I defended Jeffrey Epstein the way I've defended hundreds of other people, some guilty, some innocent. But I did absolutely nothing wrong. I've been completely exonerated. I've been completely vindicated. I'm completely innocent. I've never touched anybody sexually since the day I met my wife during the...
Notice the vocabulary. Notice he keeps using words like completely. I'm completely innocent, completely cleared of any wrongdoing, right? This is where he goes off at the mouth a little bit.
Relevant time period. And so I did nothing wrong. And nobody who's ever accused me has done it with any evidence or any credibility. So I'm happy to go on with my life, let them go on with their lives, but categorically, unequivocally, I did nothing wrong.
So you do admit that you did receive a massage at his mansion?
No. What happened is my wife got a massage at his house, and then I had a neck and shoulder massage from a woman named Olga, who was like 45 years old. Virtually every...
So you caught the lie, right? So Kim Iverson is asking him if he received a massage, right? The first thing that he tells you is no, his wife got a massage. But then he goes on to admit he got a massage. So which is it?
Has done it with any evidence or any credibility. So I'm happy to go on with my life, let them go on with their lives, but categorically, unequivocally, I did nothing wrong.
So you do admit that you did receive a massage at his mansion?
No. What happened is my wife got a massage at his house, and then I had a neck and shoulder massage from a woman named Olga, who was like 45 years old. Virtually everybody who went to any of Jeffrey Epstein's houses got therapeutic massages.
He said virtually anybody who went to Epstein houses got therapeutic massages. But when Kim asked him if he got a massage, his first response was no.
Offered to everybody, but I've never had a sexual massage or anything improper. I've never been touched by an underage person, so no.
Catch this part right here. Catch this part right here. Again, this is him giving away too much information.
5 years old. Virtually everybody who went to any of Jeffrey Epstein's houses got therapeutic massages. They were offered to everybody, but I've never had a sexual massage or anything improper. I've never been touched by an underage person, so no.
Kim didn't ask him any of that. The only question that she said was, did you have a massage at Epstein's mansion? He lied first and said no, then admitted that he did. Kim didn't mention anything about him having an erotic massage. Kim didn't mention anything about him having a massage with these underage girls. He revealed that information. He volunteered too much information.
That's not true at all.
Okay.
What else? You have anything else you want to throw at me?
Okay. Here's
I did absolutely nothing wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Well, many of us suspect that Jeffrey Epstein was an asset to Mossad, and that Ghislaine Maxwell was in fact an agent of Mossad. There's a lot of evidence that point to this direction, and that they were operating a blackmail operation in order to get very powerful people, including people like yourself, in precarious positions to where you could potentially work on behalf of the state of Israel or protect the state of Israel.
I've been working on the state of Israel. I've been working for the state of Israel since before you were born.
Everybody catch that? He said he's been working for the state of Israel since before Kim was born. Oh.
Jeffrey Epstein once visited me in Israel. He had never been there. He didn't know anybody in Israel. He didn't work for the Mossad. The Mossad wouldn't hire him. And I hope he had videotapes of everybody, because they would show I never did anything improper. I have one other question. Are you used to having people come on your show to talk about one subject and then sandbagging them on another subject without any warning? Because it's nice to know you do that, and it will make certain that I have nothing to hide. I'm happy to talk about any of this, but I'm used to more ethical journalism.
No, we actually did notify the people who booked you onto the show that you would be asked about Epstein, and they assured us that you were aware of this.
No, they never notified me about that, and you'd have to show me that email.
So Kim actually did go on to post that, to share parts of that email on Twitter. But I also want to let you know, because I interviewed Kim not too long after this interview happened. I also want to let you know that Kim didn't contact them for the interview. They contacted her. So there's that.
Okay. One last question. Do you think that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
No, of course not. Well, he didn't kill himself without the help of some people. He did kill himself, but he killed himself with the help of guards. He didn't do it by himself. He couldn't have done that. Obviously, though, the videos were turned off, and the guards turned their back, and his cellmate left. So I think he killed himself, but he killed himself with the assistance of some people in law enforcement.
Okay. All right, Mr. Dershowitz, thank you so much for joining the show. Appreciate you.
Well, it's the last time. It's the last time you'll have me on your show, so take advantage of it.
I think I got what I needed out of you. Thank you very much.
Well, you got what you wanted.
So there was that, pretty damning there. And it just, to me, he's been working for the state of Israel since before the day that Kim was born. There's something else too. Some people don't remember this. So I just want to refresh your memory. In 2019, the Times of Israel reported this. Dershowitz defends 1997 column claiming statutory and outdated concept. I'm just putting pieces of the puzzle together. You can form your own conclusions. But listen to this. 22 years later, he wrote this in 1997. 22 years later, he's defending the column on Twitter at an awkward time. Dershowitz was a member of a team that got convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein a plea deal that sent him to prison for 18 months, a sentence that critics today say was unusually brief and lenient. Let's go on. Dershowitz, a prominent defense lawyer and emeritus Harvard University law professor, himself faces accusations of sexual abuse from two of Epstein's victims. That was Virginia Giuffre and Sarah Ransom. He vehemently denied those accusations against him. The 1997 column is getting renewed attention after it was quoted in a current New Yorker article about Dershowitz and his entanglement with Epstein. In the column, which ran in the LA Times, Dershowitz argues that statutory is an increasingly irrelevant legal concept as teenage sex is normalized and rarely prosecuted. Again, this is an article that he wrote in 1997 by Alan Dershowitz. Let me show you something else. This part right here. Oh, whoops. I don't know why this moved up. This piece right here. He said, this raises a fundamental question about the continuing legitimacy of statutory laws at the time when sex involving teenagers is so rampant and prosecution for statutory so selective. It is obvious that there must be criminal sanctions against sex with very young children, but it is doubtful whether such sanctions should apply to teenagers above the age of puberty, since voluntary sex is so common in their age group. He then suggests that the age of consent should be lowered to 15 or perhaps 14 years old. Now, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, it does not look too good for Alan. Doesn't look too good for Alan. And there's something else we need to add to this story. And this involves Alan Dershowitz and Benjamin Netanyahu. Again, let's connect all the dots. And I don't know why that came out kind of British. Connect all the dots. Mint Press reported this. Epstein-linked lawyer tipped to defend Israel at The Hague. According to reports, Benjamin Netanyahu has sought suspected Alan Dershowitz to defend Israel in the upcoming hearing at the ICJ. Now, two questions. Why is Alan Dershowitz, who's an American citizen, why is he contemplating going to defend another country at the ICJ? And don't even come at me with the dual citizenship. Don't even come at me with that. This is a problem. And two, don't you think it's a little bit odd in the timing to ask him to come and defend Israel's war crimes against the Palestinian people in Gaza? Or maybe he's trying to run away, eh? Maybe he's trying to run away like this. CBS actually reported this story in 2020, how Jewish American pedophiles hide from justice in Israel. This was reported in 2020. I was actually surprised that this was on mainstream or reported by mainstream media. I want to start with, let me close that first. I want to start with this part right here, a widespread problem. A CBS News investigation has found that many accused American pedos flee to Israel, and bringing them to justice can be difficult. Jewish Community Watch, an American organization that tracks accused pedos, has been trying for years to find Carew and help bring him to justice. That's one of the people that fled. And it goes on to say here, since the small organization started tracking accused pedos in 2014, it says more than 60 have fled from the United States to Israel. Given its limited resources to identify these individuals, JCW says the actual number is likely much higher. Connect it all, guys. Connect all the dots. Connect Epstein. Connect some of the people that hung out with Epstein, that were on that island. Connect Netanyahu with the war crimes against the Palestinian people. and tie it all up in a bow. And this is what people have been saying for quite some time, which is that they believed that Epstein actually was blackmailing prominent figures in this country for Mossad. And look at where U.S. offenders are fleeing to: Israel. I like for people to connect the dots. Now, some of you did ask for that document. So The Guardian, I'm not going to read this, but I just want to show you where it's here, and I'll put the link in the chat. The Guardian actually included all the documents here. It's long. I'm telling you guys it's a lot, but they actually embedded it all here. So I'm just going to give you the link to this article because I actually downloaded them the other day or last night actually, and it's a hot mess. So I'm just putting the link to that Guardian article in the chat. That's the easiest way to do it instead of trying to download like I did, and many of us did last night. But again, it's Unsealed Jeffrey Epstein Court Papers, Read Document in full. So, and that is that, ladies and gentlemen. If you have not had a chance to do so, please go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. It helps me with the algo. If you're a newbie, don't forget to subscribe and share.